Why don't we go out and play? Just like the wind in the trees, I know you'll be there beside me. So come with me, let's go out in the sun. We're miscellaneous, so let's lend a hand to help everyone. We're free to be like this. We're happy to be here with all our friends so near. Looking up at the sky with you, I'll fly so high.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Roundtable Co-op's Indie Insight series, where we have a bit of a chat to people involved in the indie dev scene. Last couple episodes, our first episode we did talking to Mark Fraser from Let's Make Games about WA Games Week and Perth Games Fest. And last time, I keep wanting to say last week, but it's last episode, we talked to Mark Smith from Screen West about the grants that they had going on there. And I'm actually quite pleased, because while those are good things to talk about with the grants and whatnot, but today we're talking to an actual dev, Michael Pearce from Tinyware Games, who is developing Misc, Tiny Tale. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Sure, it's a pleasure. I've been keeping an eye on this for a while, because I think I first came across Misc, Tiny Tale. It was actually at a Perth Games Fest, which you should go buy tickets for that if you're wanting to see that at the Esplanade on the 26th of September, I think, here in Perth. You should definitely go to that. And it was either 2020 or 2021, which for me, like getting into the game space, like I've written for a couple of websites and also been a streamer and whatnot, but I didn't get into it until 2020, like literally the start of 2020. And then COVID's hit and you can't do anything. And so like the first Perth Games Fest I've gone to has been all presentations, which is great, but couldn't get hands on. But your game was definitely a standout there, just because it just reminds me of so many games that I've loved as a kid. Like it harkens back to those Nintendo 64 3D platformers, and then you throw in the mix of like definitely your art style's got to have taken some inspiration from Chibi Robo and Pikmin in there, because just the whole world, just it all meshes so well together in this very chill atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our game, like you said, like we've been working on it since 2020. So it's been about 3 years at this point, and we've got another few years left. But it's been so amazing, like putting together the art style, putting together all the characters in the world, because it is really, like you said, inspired by things we grew up with. I was an avid like Nintendo gamer growing up. I played like, Mario, Pikmin, all that type of stuff. And it's just all of those elements that really inspired the games that we grew up with are kind of infused into the game.
And it plays so nicely as well, because it's not kind of like the Mario 64 or the Banjo-Kazooies where there's a bit of a franticness to it in places. This is just very calmly exploring the area and just seeing what you can finding all your little nuts and bolts and the gears to progress to the next area. And it just feels so chill. So you mentioned you started coding in 2020. So that you guys must have gotten a fairly quickly, when my brain starts working quicker than my tongue starts working. You guys must have got a playable demo out fairly quickly, because I'm not sure if it was 2020 or 2021 that I saw it at Perth Games Fest, but you had a demo ready then. And that to me is pretty quick to have the first level pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, so like we basically did our vertical slice, or what you would normally call a vertical slice, within, I'd say, like the first 6 months of development.
Oh, wow.
So that was really making sure, we had all the systems in place for the dialogue. Of course, we like planned out level 1, and that's really like the tutorial level that you see. So everything started really quickly, surprisingly. And then from there, it's all about like kind of polishing everything, also just expanding and creating all these new mechanics. But yeah, I believe it was 2020. Like you said, it was the COVID era where like it was the first time Perth Games Festival had to do a stream
Mm.
because they weren't doing like in-person stuff. So that's where we presented it. And yeah, looking back at that demo, it's crazy how much it's changed since then.
Yeah, absolutely. Just seeing all the bits and pieces, and it's just seeing the where you come from the prototypes going forward. I've been reviewing a game recently, which I don't think I'm allowed to say quite yet, just because of embargoes. But they do that. Like it's a very old game that they've found the prototypes, and just seeing that growth in the game, and that's what I feel like you guys have kind of done a little bit too, is you because you've been out there releasing your demos and updating your demos, whether it's on Steam or I think with the G round, I think I was
Yeah.
on there for a bit where the second level got included for a while as well. Um, but just and being able to see those iterations as you go as a consumer is just it's a wonderful feeling to feel like we're growing with the game as you're making it.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, what was interesting about the initial phase of the development was like in those 6 months, every asset we made was more or less the final version of that asset.
Mm.
We chose to not really do a ton of like prototyping or blocking out because we really wanted to, at the front, start to get a following, start to have something visual that we can show and let people follow. So I think that's been a really interesting process because like a lot of developers like sometimes don't do that. And especially if you're a smaller team, you really got to rely on like as soon as you got something visual, get it out there, get people following.
Yeah, and you seem to have done that really well, especially with your two main characters, Buddy, who's the playable character, and Bag Boy as well, because it's just like I need to get a thesaurus and look up another word for cozy, but that's just what it feels like, and it's just so good, so chill, being able to go through these levels and see them have their relationship as well, and with the other residents that you meet along the way. How key was like having those relationships in game for you guys?
Yeah, it was really, I think it was a big key point. Like the whole game's core is all about helping others and sort of celebrating difference. So we really wanted to make sure that, just within the first level, you got a quite good variety of characters, but especially after level two and everything beyond, you'll meet so many, wacky, diverse selections of
Mm.
characters that, in their nature, they're made of miscellaneous items.
Mm.
They're very unique. So we really wanted to focus on that. And I think, for me as like a creative, writing their stories, creating the narratives around each of these characters' stories is so fun, and it's where we get to really reflect a part of ourselves in these characters too.
And that definitely definitely shows through in everything you're doing there. So one thing I want to talk about, and like I mentioned earlier, talked to Mark Smith from Screen West in the last episode, because I think I like to highlight how hard it is as an indie dev, and because everybody starts being a dev because they are passionate about games and they just want to make it, so they might make it in their spare time. They after work, late nights, they're just sitting there coding. But you've been lucky enough to receive not just one but two grants, one from Screen Australia and one from Screen West here in Western Australia. How have those helped you to better sit down and understand what you need for Misc Tiny Tail?
Oh, it's been like absolutely huge for us because like it meant that last year I was able to at the end of the year leave my current day job and I'm working on the game from the start of this year 4 days a week. So this is able to be now my full-time focus. I'm really able to just, sit down and work on the game as much as I can. And, time is like an indie dev's number one enemy. Like you said, for many years, for 3 years before this, I was just working a day job and doing this on weekends, doing this after work as many hours as I could. And I think that's just kind of the process for a lot of developers, especially as they're learning. Like before I worked on Misc Tiny Tail, I had worked on a fan project with team developers online. And I worked on that for 3 years. So that was really where I get to like flex my skills and kind of learn and discover all these programs. But if I didn't have that time to work on that, just for free in my spare time, I might not be at the level where I could actually fully commit to it and do it as my job now.
Yeah. And I think that's also important as well. We talk about fan games and we talk about mods and things like that, because so many games, and I think it kind of gets lost a little bit these days, but you look back at things like Dota and Counter-Strike. Both those are probably two of the biggest esports games in the world, and they were mods. Like Dota was there was a Warcraft 3 mod, and Counter-Strike was a Half-Life mod. And the people that got those up and running did what you were doing, and they were just working in their bedrooms, just doing what they could. And it still happens today. Like there's still a lot of games out there with modding support that just, and that's where amateurs, for lack of a better term, can learn their trade a little bit more and learn to just update the game in strange and real ways. Like, I don't know if you've seen, there was that horror game where there was a train that kind of stalked you around and someone modded Thomas the Tank Engine into it.
Yes.
Yes, they're funny things like that, or they can be whole other sections to games. So thank you to all the companies out there that let us play in their sandbox when it comes to their titles and IPs as well, because it's otherwise, where's your next generation of devs come from?
Yeah, no, and it's so vital too because my brother, he's also a developer and he started off modding Minecraft when he was a teenager. And he ended up making a really large mod called the Aether, which, just blew up and that's where he learned how to program. That's where he learned a lot of his management skills. And years down the line, he eventually got a job at Mojang where he currently works now. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
there are things that that happen from these things. I think, especially in this industry, more than ever, it doesn't matter as much about if you go to school or anything, because both of us didn't go to university. It really matters about, are you in there day in and day out working on your skills, and do you have something to show at the end of the day too?
Yeah, if you can show that you've got an interest and you're willing to learn and you go out of your own way to learn it without that formal education behind it, I think that shows interest, and interest sometimes is a lot of the battle. If you're interested in what you do, if you're passionate about what you do, that will supplant like an education for somebody that's only just like, yeah, this sounds like something fun to do. Let's do that. Yeah. So, speaking of getting right into it and being right into your games, I've noticed you've been releasing some devlogs about it. I was just watching the latest one today, which I think is that a couple of months old now, but just looking at it and just seeing the improvements that you're able to do now that you're working on it full time, like little things that I saw in there about the camera being able to zoom in and out so you can get a scale of the world, and the improvements to animation for the mushrooms that you bounce on, so they become springy rather than this static thing that just sits there and doesn't look like it reacts much at all. So have you got any perhaps like little secrets for us that you're working on at the moment that you're getting ready to add to the game?
Yeah, well, it's been really interesting because especially coming from my background in marketing, I know how important it is to share information with your community, right? But since we got the grants, and since I've been working on it since the start of this year, our focus for the year has actually been working on the last 3 chapters of the game. So there's 8 chapters in total. We've been working on 6, 7, and 8. And of course, the big problem with that is they're all spoiler territory.
Yeah.
So we can't share anything about it because
Oh.
it just, it dives into so many things. But I have in the meantime been doing these devlogs, been releasing these small little glimpses of the game because working on these last 3 chapters, there's been mechanics that we've been developing, or things we've been improving along the way that you can see in the earlier parts of the game. So that's stuff that you saw in that devlog, how things are better animated and just, things are coming together more polished. It is something that is really difficult to balance because, you really want to show stuff, but how do you show it without spoiling? You have to walk that fine line. So that's been a really interesting challenge this year.
Yeah. I'm quite excited about the UI change that's in that devlog about the collection meter, pretty much. So how much trash is left to pick up and how many gears are left in there. Because I'm one of those people that will search forever to try and find stuff. And if you can tell me straight up, I've got everything, I love you for that already. It's great. I love it.
Absolutely. Like
uh,
I'm a collectionist at heart
uh,
too when I play games. So like I really wanted it to not only just be able to be a guide for people to see what's left to collect and what's left in the level to do, but also to be like a satisfying thing.
yeah.
Like we added stamps that like really are a satisfying way to complete quests, and yeah, I think it's really fun.
So you mentioned a royal we in there. Who else is on your team that you're working with?
Yeah, so I'm the lead dev, so I do a lot of the just basic work, when it comes to modeling, programming, all that stuff. I do have some help. So on our team, we also have Bernard, which is our music composer. He lives in Florida, and we also have a 2D artist who helps out with concepts, and he lives in New York. So we've been, sharing like stuff online. We've been working together for years now, and we've never met in person. So I think it's one of those amazing things, working on games and working on anything nowadays where you can just do it online and create something across the globe.
Yeah, it really is amazing, and it's got to help indie devs out so much. Like, at PAX last year, I had a chance to talk to Graham Struthers, who's one of the founders of Devolver Digital, and he was just. We got talking, and he talked about the interconnectedness of everything and how digital things, whether it's digital distribution or just digital communications, has just made the indie game so much easier for people, so that you didn't all have to be in the same city. You could be doing what you're doing and getting the best people from around the world, the people that work well together to do, or even just you go up on what's a website like Freelancer, I think, where you can just go, I just need this artwork done really quickly, who can do it for me, and it's there and you got it. So it's really cool to see you guys working together like that. And in particular, like I'm always interested in music in games, because like I have a musical ear, but I in no way or form have musical talent at all. And seeing the work that Bernard and yourself did with Rame for the theme song, We're Miscellaneous. So it's going to be, it's in the trailer, which I'm hopefully going to remember to put at the beginning of this episode, so everybody will be able to hear it. And just like this really cool acoustic song that fits so well with the game. And I believe that when composing that song, she's referenced so much of what Bernard's already done with his theme work and Misc Tiny Tale.
Yeah, so we wrote the actual like main theme of the game well before we ever reached out to Rame, and it was just such a beautiful collaboration, like them working together, because it was done in an interesting process, obviously because it's all online. So basically we went to her, we explained the game, she actually got to see it and play it a little bit, and then she came back with this song idea, this lyric idea, and then afterwards, all that she recorded was her vocals and the guitar,
Mm-hmm.
but everything else was actually added on as an extra layer and composed to that through Bernard's software. So it was like a really good collaboration between like digital and physical music. And like you said, the song and the other few songs that are done by her in the game are done specifically to the game and the themes in the game. So yeah, I'm really excited for people to see where they are in the game.
That is so awesome. And like I once again I want to touch on stuff because I'm always very keen in letting other people know, as well as learning myself, about the development process. And after you received the Screen Australia grant, you released a bit of a roadmap. So not with individual steps in there, but at least had some expectations for people on release date, which is going to be the end of 2024, beginning of 2025. So to some people that would seem like a long time, but considering you only started working full time on it at the beginning of the year, what is that time going to allow you to do in game?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't know how long it would have took if we didn't have the funding. But it is definitely something that was really good because as part of our like sort of pitch to the grant people was to have a timeline and to really work out the details that may have been a bit vague at the time. So just for us internally for our organization, that was really great. So for our game, it's divided into chapters, which is really nice. So there's 8 chapters in total. Like I said before, this year's focus, we're actually working at the end first. So the ending of the game and the ending of the story is something we really want to get right. So it was something we wanted to focus on first. So we've got chapter 6, 7, and 8 that we're working on and hopefully completing by the end of this year. And then next year, as our final year of development, we're going to be going back and finishing 3, 4, and 5. And because of the way that this is laid out, it kind of gives us some flexibility if, we have to pull back on some things or add some things there. But it was really interesting because, like you said, for the general public, for people who don't make games, it's a really long timeline. I mean, by the end of the development, I would have been working on this game for 5 years. That's a long time to work on a game as an indie dev. So I'm really excited to see that process wrapped up and especially working on those final chapters now and seeing like the ending of the game start to get together. It's really emotional. Like you're so connected to the experience and the characters and the world you're building. So yeah, it's tough, but it's really rewarding too.
And I can't wait to see the product myself. But luckily, if people want to get an idea of the game, you guys have the demo out on Steam at the moment.
Yes, we do.
So you can jump on there. Don't forget to wishlist it as well, because that lets everybody know how many people are interested in the game. It's always a big thing for indie devs. The more people that wishlist it, the better it is for the devs to do. And it's also going to be coming to Nintendo Switch as well. So
yes.
I'm actually not sure. I'm assuming you can wishlist it on the eShop as well. I'm not 100% on how that works because I'm a physical media person, except for on PC. So, but yeah, wherever it is, look it up, have a look at it. Misc Tiny Tale. Michael, thank you so much for taking some time to have a chat with me today. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Cheers.